Today, I got somebody that I'm so fortunate to have met through a connection of mine in Los Angeles, Georgina Aviles. And Georgina and I have met many, many, many years ago working together with Tito Puente Jr. and doing some other ventures and stuff. So we've kept in touch, and throughout the years, I've been fortunate to have met a lot of high-end celebrities and attend many events due to my connection with Georgina. So I want to thank you first and foremost, Georgina, for this opportunity to have met this Hollywood film director and writer and much, much more. You might want to go to lrquintero.com and check out his reel, his history, and all the things that this young man has done in time. And I tell you what, when you look at his history, it makes you wonder that how he packed it in at such a young age. But he has gone to the point of taking this to another level and ensuring that other aspiring actors and writers and people that want to enter film and television have a place to go and learn from, because he's a brainiac. I mean, this guy is a creative genius. And again, I want to, hey, Georgina, got my West Coast in the house. I know it's a little bit after 10 a.m. on the West Coast. Here in Dallas, it is it's about to hit 12 noon right about now. And any moment now, Luis is going to come on here. Been looking forward to this for a long time, my friend.
Oh, thanks for having me. I've been watching your feeds and talking to you. I admire your work, and I think what you're doing
Yes,
for the
sir.
community is really, really important.
Thank you. I mean, I've been around in the business a little bit. I dabbed a little bit in film, I kind of stumbled upon a little interview, a little audition, and kind of got the bug early. I went from doing Grease, and I was Kaniki, by the way, in Grease. I was the side guy, in the car. And we did Dallas Theater Center, and then here I was in sixth grade and on my way to seventh grade, and then here comes this opportunity. But then once the bug gets you in front, back the scenes, whatever, you just want to share that vibe with other people. You want all your friends from your hood just to go with you all the way through the process and just and accelerate. So here you are, a Latino in Hollywood, Los Angeles. People go to your website, all these accolades, all these awards that you've won, all these media that have been covering you throughout the years. And then I ask you your age, and I'm like, how did you do it? So from here, man, the floor is yours.
Well, you said something earlier that I really like to hear. It's that bug, because you know that bug story, and I always ask that because I like to mentor a lot of young up and coming filmmakers, writers, actors, or what have you. Because unfortunately, in our community, the arts aren't as respected as in other professions. They're saying, "Oh, so you're going to be a filmmaker? Cool. What's your real job?"
I know,
And
that's that question, especially your parents, right? You
oh
coming out, they're
yeah,
like, "Oh, really? You really want to be an actor? Oh, you want to be a filmmaker? Okay, so what are you going to go to school for?"
yeah, what's your backup plan? And I said, oh, I'm going to
Right.
go for film. You know what I mean? It's like my backup plan. I think if you have a backup plan, you kind of become that backup plan. I'll become a doctor before I'll become a filmmaker. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
I said, well, why don't I take that same approach? Like I went,
Right.
I went to get my education. I said, you know what? It's really important to have that fundamentals, because at the end of the day, you have something to show for it, and it
Sure.
always
Sure.
shows some sort of discipline, because not a lot of people are lucky enough to know what they want to do early on in life. So by the time they figure it out, they're just like, oh my God, I'm 10 years behind. You know what I mean? So, and then we're our worst enemy, first and
Oh, yeah.
foremost. I've known people that want to be in the business, and they're, they're, they're accomplished architects. They're accomplished other things in other professions, but yet they still have that bug. And
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
yeah, yeah. So I tell them, honestly, it's just like a construction job. You start looking at all the elements that you need, and I was very fortunate that I knew what I wanted to pursue, because I saw the power of media.
Okay.
The families gathered together to watch Siempre Domingo, Sábado Gigante, all these
Oh my
things, and
God, Siempre Domingo. I remember that. Yeah.
I was highlighting artists and what
Yeah.
have you. What I didn't catch on early on was that Sábado Gigante was a 4-hour commercial. You know what I mean? You're singing along the
Yeah, we,
jingle
we figured that out down the road, right? But you know
down.
what they did? They brought it live to the studio. So,
Yeah,
they did jingles right there on the
yeah.
spot. So that allowed them to do last minute sponsors to come on and just improvise along the way with scripting. Yeah.
Absolutely, but it was brilliant, because at the end of the day, it was, it's capitalism. People want to make money, consumerism. They want you to go out there and buy, and it's a
Yeah.
business. That's what people tend to not understand. They only see the red carpets, the premieres, the on the big screen, which is great, but that's a small sample of everything that goes into going into that field. you know? And I always equate sports with filmmaking as well, because
Okay.
we don't see the practices. We don't see the
No,
quarterback looking at the tape,
no,
studying, looking at what's happening, practicing or rehearsing the same play over
no,
and over.
no, not at all.
Magic when they are on the field and they apply the knowledge onto that short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, I always said, all right, if I want to be a filmmaker, what do I want to do? Well, first go pursue an education. So I
Mm-hmm.
studied at the University of California, Santa Cruz. So all
Okay.
shout out
Okay.
plugs in Northern California. But then I started their first TV station along with three other people. It's
So
still running to,
before you go into that, how did you do that? Because I hear it, I see your bio. People always
yeah,
hear it say, Rikki, oh yeah, yeah, you made a movie. Or yeah, yeah, you done this. Oh yeah, yeah. But we never
yeah.
get into the process of that, what made it look like to be so simple, and how you three came together and said, we're gonna do a station. And what was your first move on that?
Well, you see a need. You know, the first thing is I always look at three things. I always break down everything in threes
Oh yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
I love
have
it.
to. You have to, because we're conditioned that way. You
Mm-hmm.
go outside, you know, you see red, yellow, green.
Yeah.
You know, and in church, you're like the Father, Son, Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
past, present, future. It's just broken down. And the thing is, if we don't pay attention to those things, we try to reinvent the wheel. And why is it we try to
Mm-hmm.
reinvent the wheel? Why don't just create a new path for the established road that's there?
Right,
And,
right.
and I feel that that's the mistake that a lot of us make, where
Okay.
we go out there. No one has come up with this before. No, you haven't realized this doesn't exist. Yeah,
Wait, that's just it. So people are making mistakes without realizing they are. So basically, there's no handbook out there. And
yeah,
even if Steven Spielberg, even if James Cameron wrote a book
yeah.
on the steps, you have to live your own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's just it.
So
Formal
yeah,
education has its purpose. You know, the university you went to, it gave you the foundation, a well-rounded foundation of what you know and whatnot. Life began after you graduated.
absolutely. I tell people, well, going back really quick to that, you know, the
Yeah, the
TV
three
station,
thing. Mm-hmm.
we saw a need. We saw that media was going to be the wave of the future. You know, this is before YouTube. You know, so
Yeah,
it's
way
not
before.
access. So television was one of the kings, and we said we don't have a voice representing the students.
Okay.
So if we create something, you know, hopefully it gets you opportunities and it gets you the visibility, because
Right.
who cares something with three friends and no one sees it,
True,
you
true,
know?
true,
And
true.
it can't be self-serving. That's the mistake too, again, that we constantly make, where it's like it's only about us. And I'm saying, no, there's plenty of room for everyone. So we created that. The ironic part about our journey was that we never saw the station built up because there was a limit. I graduated early. I finished my degree in 2 years, but
Wow.
I stuck around for a third because I was part of this early start program in high school. So by the
Yeah.
time I graduated in college, graduated high school, I was already a junior in college.
Okay.
So,
Wow. Advanced.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I streamlined through everything, and I said, well, I want to go to Los Angeles, and a lot of the people I hung out with were upperclassmen, so they graduated, so we passed the torch on to someone else, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the key. You can't micromanage everything. You have to
No.
trust people that they're gonna follow the same vision, but you know, connect with those people that are exactly the same foundation as you.
Do you find the trust factor being a conscious decision or more of an unconscionable one by people?
You know, it depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I learned early on that you cannot do anything by yourself. I don't
True.
care if
True that.
it's Robert Rodriguez, James Cameron, Spielberg, Scorsese, Del Toro. No one says I did it by myself.
No,
They
no.
may hear that they did, but they have an army
Yeah.
that they use all the time. It's the same people. When I worked with Judd Apatow, it was the same people going now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it just continues and continues. You know, like so what I always feel that is how do we just band together, because most people think that you have one shot.
Right,
And
right, right.
you have so many opportunities, and I always feel like you have to surround yourself with the people you want to be like, you know.
True.
And
Very
I
true. Very true.
yeah, so it's like I was very fortunate that I came across this philosophy of, well, it's going to take me at least 10 years before someone gets to notice me,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And because I look at it this way: if you're a doctor, you go to undergrad, you go to med school, you go to residency, and then after all that said and done, 10 years have gone by, and then what, became a doctor, but it doesn't mean you're rich and famous or what have
No.
you.
You're paying it back. Then you
You're
got
paying back,
malpractice
but
insurance you're paying too as well. So,
yeah, you're paying all of that back,
yeah, yeah,
and you earn the right to start at the bottom.
yeah.
And that's the one thing. It's saying, okay, take that approach. You're a
Sure.
professional. Treat yourself like a professional.
Exactly.
You know, and what's very hard is, especially in Hollywood, it's all smoke and mirrors. People are like, I'm a cinematographer. Great. Show me your reel. Well, I have this red camera, and no, you know, it's like, you're very lucky that you bought this accessibility to these toys. So just because you bought the latest and greatest toy doesn't mean you know how to use it.
Right.
You know? And then editors, same thing. I'm an editor. I have Premiere and Final Cut. That's cool. I also have a computer. You know, so it's like, who are your clients? Who have you
Right.
have you worked for? Like, what are you doing? Because at the end of the day, you don't tell people, you show people.
Well, that brings me to another point, because with technology, anyone can create a spec reel. Anyone can create a sizzle. If it doesn't mean they're going to have the best sizzle, but my point is, it boils down to published works. So you could say that you've done 20 different jobs. Where are they? And you know, are they on your reel, or are they on broadcast television? Have they been published? Are they work that you sat in as a DP, as a writer, as a co-producer? What was your role? So you couldn't have directed 20 projects, and we don't know where they are.
Yeah.
So my work is more in the music industry, but it's just, I see the same thing. I want to hear your published works, because you can tell me that you in the studio, but I also know about auto-tune. I know a lot of singers that sound really good on Sirius XM, not live. But having said that, what's important to me is the foundation, because you get asked to speak to children, and it's a big deal for you to mentor, and I think that's amazing. I've read in your bio that you had a mentor, Miss Ann Coates, and speak on how she affected you when it came to writing, because those are important, that people, whatever age they are, whatever level. I'm a believer that no matter how old you are, you always need to keep learning. So what did she do for your career as a writer?
Well, just so you guys know, who don't know who Ann Coates was, she's an Oscar-winning editor who cut Lawrence of Arabia.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
I studied her in film school, and it was really cool, because to actually getting her coffee and working for her and doing all this stuff was amazing, because I could backtrack a little bit more. Like, for me, I always feel like the foundation is everything. All right. And in order to dive into like being a part of the world, I said, okay, where do I want to be like? Who do I want to be like? And again, if it's going to take 10 years for someone to get to notice me, I just graduated from college. I was 21 years old.
Yeah.
Like, all right, what do I do? And I went to every studio. I went with my resume in hand, and I went to every studio, and I said, I want a job. And I remember I was at this unnamed studio, because one day I will want to work with them. And I show up at the kiosk. And
I love this. I love this story, because this is that difference between people that try a million times and people that actually get through that door. So yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to sit back on this one, man. I love this story.
No, absolutely. So when I show up at the kiosk, the security guard looks me up and down, and this is before the internet, of course. You know, it's like, it's not as accessible, or it's like, oh, let me contact numbers. I said, I'm here to get a job. And the guy says, do you have an appointment? I'm like, what? No. Why? And he's like, well, you have to come to speak to somebody, so I can't let you in. And normally the way studios work is it's a one-way entrance, because it's just like people may bum rush the studio or what have you.
Of
so
course.
It's out.
Yeah.
So he said, I can't let you in, and there's a long line of cars behind you. I'm going to open the gate, go around it, and around the corner, there's a box. Put your resume there. And I feel like this kid's one of the good guys. Like, this guy's amazing. So when he opens the kiosk, and for the brief 5 seconds that I loop my car around, I feel like this is amazing. I made it. Yes, Mom. And I reach the corner, and it's a trash can. And the security guard just does this. And I'm like, oh, that's like, my head went like, it just shrunk like crazy. And I said, there has to be a protocol or something that I have to do in order to, there has to be a right way.
Yeah, of course.
So then I did the proper channels. And this is why I always tell the young people, I'm like, find the proper channels. Just because you want it doesn't mean the world's going to stop and figure out how you want it. It. If you want to be a writer, go write. If you want to be a director, go direct. If you want to be a producer, go produce. find those elements, because when you start seeing all the things that you need, you realize, again, you need an army. You need a people that are going to do it. Or you could do everything by yourself and just be exhausted. But
directed by, produced by,
yeah,
executive producer by, you know, I think that's Robert Townsend, right? Pretty much.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But then if you have $100,000 to spare, sure, you know, on something that you're trying to figure out, you know, like it goes very difficult. So fast forward, I call Universal Pictures and I'm saying, hey, I want to set up an appointment with HR, you know, human resources. And they said, okay, yeah, sure. So I came inside and I show up with my resume and they're like, we have no jobs. And at the time, you know, I shaved this off. It looked like I'm 12. He's like, well, are you a student? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I already had graduated. Yeah. So I you know, like I show up and they're like, well, you're a student. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I called my professor from the university and I'm like, please write me a letter. Like, write me a letter that I need some sort of help. Like I'm a student. I just graduated, but I need some credits. And I'm always grateful for Marco because he was a professor of mine at the university.
Yeah.
And because of him, I received my first internship at Universal Pictures.
Oh, very nice.
And I was there like thinking I was going to work for Scorsese or all the directors and producers. It's all these executives, like corporate executives, because I think GE owned Universal at that time. And I was there during the time when they switched from GE to Comcast. Like it just like the big merger happened. So a lot of executives, a lot of accountants, lawyers, you know, people that are, you know, not what I thought it would be.
Right.
I got to be the assistant to development, to production, to accounting, to casting. I was a floating assistant for like maybe 40 people. You know what I mean? So it was amazing because no job was too small or too big for me. I would do it. And I was there every day from like 8 in the morning till like 9 o'clock at night.
Pero con gusto, con gusto.
Con gusto. Oh, because
that's important. It's a passion, man. Like you worked that long? No. I was fortunate that long.
Getting on the lot is the best feeling in the world. Like I can't explain it. It just, you know, you may walk in like this, but then as soon as you cross that gate, you just stand up like 10 feet taller. And I just can't explain it, but I got addicted to it.
Yeah.
I have to find a way to just be here because these are the people that I want to be like. These are the people that that have inspired me, and I want to see the inner workings.
Yes.
So I was there for a few months. Actually, I was there while all the other interns were there every other day from 9 a.m. to like lunchtime. You know, so my boss, he kind of caught on. He said, "Hey, so I saw your resume and you go to UC Santa Cruz." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I went to UC Santa Cruz. That's 400 miles away. You know, so how are you here all the time?" And because of that, and I always owe John everything as well, because John is the guy who's like, he put me in the right places and he saw, he was observant. He was an assistant at the time. Now he's a hot shot over at another studio, which is amazing because seeing the journey of what he's been doing for 15 years has been incredible. But again, it's just seeing you start growing together. And these are people that you just bounce ideas with because everybody wants to succeed. Everybody. And so from there, another boss of mine said, "I have a task for you. And I know it's not what you want to do, but this will help you become that producer, that director. You understand where the money goes." And he was in finance. Now he does physical production. And these guys are doing, you know, they were doing King Kong, Pride and Prejudice, you know, 40-Year-Old Virgin. They're doing some big movies because the studio system is not what most people think. They see they're cranking out movies daily or weekly, but there's a schedule that happens that's at least in advance.
Right.
So like if someone wants to read your script, it may be, again, 3 years down the line where they actually make it or what have you. So
true that.
Streamline it and they green light it immediately. But anyways, just protocols. He said, "I know it's not what you want to do, but if you become this accountant clerk for this movie, you'll know where the money goes. You'll know how do people pay, how we spend $36 million.
Very important.
Very, very important." And I said, "Absolutely, sign me up." And that's how I became the accounting clerk for the Judd Apatow's first movie, 40-Year-Old Virgin. And the one thing I always tell people, okay, be persistent, be consistent, and be loyal. And let me break it down on why. Like persistence, if you want to be a director, be persistent about it. Keep doing it. That's where it leads up to the part. Everything you do correlates to the vision that you want to accomplish. So if you're persistent and you're consistent, and then you're loyal to your dream and to others, the people that helped you get there, you'll kind of zip line up. It's amazing.
Right.
You know what I mean? But just understand, it's not going to happen overnight. So when I was there, I was working as the accounting clerk. I was filing papers, doing payroll. At the end of the week, which was, I believe, Thursday or Wednesday for us, we would be done with everything, and then we would send the paychecks on to set. And I was there for weeks at a time, and I said, I'm not going to set. I'm just going to the studio lot. And I said, I want to be a director. So
Light bulb went off.
Yeah. So I said, hey, boss lady, can I go to set? And she's like, why? I'm like, well, I'll deliver the paychecks myself. It's like, it's no big deal. It's like, hey, knock yourself out, kid. Go get some lunch. So I always knew, like, when you show up, there's craft service, where the money,
the craft services are amazing.
So I said, all right, cool. So I would do all my work all week. And then that day where I could drive onto set was the happiest day of my life, because sometimes we're shooting in, Pasadena, Santa Monica, all over LA. And so, it's like amazing. You know what I mean? Like, they have carte blanche. They're spending $36 million. They have access to anything.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
So when I would, I drove onto the lot or the set, the very first day, Judd Apatow tried to kick me off set because, it's a family. Everybody knows each other. And then you see this kid who happened to go to security, again, no beard, no nothing. I'm walking around, and then all of a sudden it's like we lock eyes.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know who I am, so he's like, he keeps doing what he's doing. He keeps directing Steve Carell, and he's doing this thing, and you say action, you stop. That's protocol. You don't move. You don't, you let them do their thing. Once they say cut, you proceed.
Right.
He kept locking eyes with me like 3 or 4 times, and then he leans over. He leans over to his assistant director and does this, and then he does that, and the assistant director comes to me, and he says, "Hey, who are you?" He's like, "Hey, who are you? What's your name?" And I said, "Well, who are you? What's your name?"
There you go.
And then it was Andrew, and he tells me his name. I give him the paycheck, and I become the most popular guy on set.
Well, you brought the money.
He's the money. I'm the money guy. So that became my master's program, because I saw how Judd Apatow was directing his very first film, which was 40-Year-Old Virgin, because he had done Freaks and Geeks, television, and what have you. And one day I hope to reunite with him and just be like, remember that time you tried to kick me off set? You know what I mean? Because it's
that's going to be a good conversation starter too. And you guys meet up somewhere just unplanned, and you just kind of bring that up. That's going to be exciting.
Oh yeah, because everyone's doing their own thing. You know what I mean? They all branch off, and I still have a shirt. Like, we almost shut down production because of financial reasons or what have you, and maybe it's like, so he gave us shirts. I think Steve Carell and Judd gave us shirts that said, "I'm still a virgin." So it's like, I still have it. I have this memorabilia box of all the journeys that I've done and the people I've worked with and what have you. And that's one of them that's locked away and safe. And those are the stories that I tell people, go out there. The best ability you can have is availability. And if you're available, you're this kind of transitions over to my next story. I was running out because the productions end. It's not like, oh, now you're set for life. You're going to work with this team forever.
No. It's called save what you made.
Your last job is technically your last job.
Yeah.
So when I finished that, and I said, all right, cool. Let me go look and see where I can kind of get a paying job. And usually desk jobs I'm really good at, because you have to pay attention to things, and corporate, there's, in production, there's no structure until you're actually on set. And even then it's kind of like loosey-goosey.
Right.
But to get there, I'm a guy from Pacoima. You know what I mean? We're only known for 2 things: Richie Valens and gangs. You know what I mean? So I don't have any hookups. My family is not connected in Hollywood whatsoever.
So for people that aren't familiar with Hollywood or LA in general, where is that from where Hollywood is? Where you're from?
Pacoima is the northern side of the valley, the San Fernando Valley.
Okay,
so
I'm familiar with that.
It's 15 minutes away, unless there's traffic. You know what I mean? Well, especially during, you can't. It's
Right,
a,
right.
it's a matter, but everything's 15 minutes away. I have a
Okay.
volleyball. I went to the same high school as Danny Trejo. You know what I mean? It's like we all, there's not a lot of us in the industry that have kind of like broken through. And even I don't consider myself that broken through yet, because I'm the best kept secret that no one knows about yet. You know what I mean? It's like,
Well,
if
well,
you,
well, well. I mean, and I know how humble you are, and I know that's what led you to work with Georgina, and to surround yourself from people that are, I call them kindred spirits. I'm a believer in that. I know that we all, cross each other's paths one way or another, depending, not, no matter where we live and whatnot. I know people like ourselves connect in some form or another. And
absolutely.
the patience part that you're speaking of, I know you have three different words to speak on, two other ones. It's very important because it's almost like a business plan in the sense that you set your goals, realistic goals, and they're not just, okay, it's going to take me 1 to 3 years to get to the next level. It's just that in your mindset that you're willing to work that hard to
Absolutely.
achieve that, because you're not trying to be an overnight success. Now, of course, we'd love to wake up one day and we have $100 million budget. Let's do this, but you also have to deliver that, so we
Yes.
don't bite off more than we can chew, and that
Yes.
we increase and reinvest into our reputation management. That's one thing that I've always told people: reinvest into your reputation and make sure that you have the right team to be able to deliver what they're asking you to do. So that patience thing is amazing. So I'm glad you spoke on that. I know you have two other P's or two other things.
Oh yeah, no, but I'll add to that. It's like, if you only have one lifetime, you know what I mean? Like you
Mm-hmm.
got one shot, and a lot of people feel like it's too late. I know,
Mm-hmm.
again, maybe because I was early on, I spoke to an executive, and the reason why I was really rushing to kind of just get to that, establish that reputation, was because
Yeah.
she told, if you're 40 years old and you haven't made it, I won't hire you.
Wow. Okay.
And she told me that. I'm like, whoa, that really hit home, because you're 20 something. And she says, but here's the funny part. She says, you're at the age where people they don't trust you. Why would I give you money to go create something?
Wow. So you're at the
Yeah,
age where they don't trust you. Is that what it is? That's what it's all about? Is that what it is?
that well, the thing is this: if you're thinking about it, how are they going to give you $36 million?
True. True.
And to get started. And this is why they said, go create with what you got, and
Uh-huh.
then time you're like, try to hit it before then. The formula, I've seen it. I've seen actors being made. Like, that's the best part about working at Sony, Disney, Universal, Fox. You see, they're like, this is the person, he's our champion, let's go, let's build them up, for success. They may not be the star here, and let's,
Right.
build that. And that's what I kind of started applying in my formulas to my work. The film I did with Ed Asner and Danny Trejo, they were the marquee people, but they weren't the stars. They came in for like a day, and then I was elevating the up and comers, and then I was elevating those middle tier people as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had TV people, I had cinema people, and I had newbies. And all
And
of
you
my
and
work,
you have to shift your attention to all of them in different ways, don't you?
absolutely. It's like being a director is like being a trainer at a gym. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
knows how to do a push up, everybody. But if you're a trainer, the advantage you have is you're watching everyone from afar, and you're saying, hey, put your butt down a little bit, or,
Right.
have you. So when I see these kind of, like, uh, again, I you start seeing the matrix. You start
Yeah.
seeing like, yeah, this makes applies to this applies to that. And again, this is why I always tell people, be available.
Be
So
available.
so when I told you I left 40 Year Old Virgin, I shot my very first film called La Hora del Té. I was preparing for that. And that was a little short story about a little girl who says goodbye to her mom after she passes away through
I
their
love it.
traditional ceremony. And I took my band of misfits, and we drove to Mexico. We shot at my grandfather's ranch, which, by the way, I just want to throw a shout out to the Quintero Ramirez family, because they're
Hey,
awesome.
we're here. This is a formal show, man. You can shout out to your friends from high school. You can shout out to that one girl that said no and now she's regretting it. You know what I mean? Hey, I'm shouting out to people right now. I got that actress I work with, Cynthia Santiago, saying hello to her. Yeah, she's on there, and I want you to meet Luis. And we're really big about trying to help each other out, man, because this is the deal. I'm doing this because I love it. I'm not getting
Yes.
paid for this, but I
Mm-hmm.
have an obligation to reach back, to reach out. I called Georgina, like, hey. I called people in Miami, like, hey. look, we're using this platform because A, we have it, and B, we need to talk about it. And
Yes.
so I'll let you keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, no, but it's true. It's going to go to my other point, which I've always wanted to do, which is empower people and give people the opportunity. Because the one thing, again, not everyone will see that they have to be available, especially now where we're so efficient, where everything is catered to our own needs and desires.
Right.
And we beyond our own little box, which is now like our phones,
Hmm.
and put it down and observe people. Of course, it's hard to do that right now because of the pandemic and we're not going out at all, pretty much.
Right, right.
But one of the things that I used to miss is just being the, the anonymity of going to a coffee shop and watching people. I love interacting with people.
I love it too.
I love hearing what they're about. And like, I know this, one of my baristas, I'm like, one day like she was telling me she wants to own her own coffee shop. I'm like, man, I wish one day I was in a position to do that, because I see her scrubbing the toilets. Doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter like what her position is. She's rolling up her sleeves, and she always had my coffee ready in the morning. Like, she was just on top. The attention to detail was
Right.
amazing. And not everybody has that.
No.
And that's why, tell me, because her name is Cindy, and I was like, Cinderella. I'm like, hey, Cinderella. And I told her, tell me what you want. Like, what's your dream? She's like, I want to own my own coffee shop one day. And I said, cool. And if if God willing, maybe one day I'll be able to help her. You know what I mean? That's always been my dream.
Those are real life stories, because you have the intent, and that's the most important part. Your intention can move mountains, and I'm big on that. And so your intention is to help her do that. It may help manifest the fact that she's able to do it one day. And I'm a believer in that. So that's a wonderful aspect. And these are the kind of things that kind of go beyond the spectrum of the bio. These are things we can't even begin to write about. For people to read is our intention on helping others. The first thing you said to us, was like, I want us to work together. I want us to do stuff. I want us to like look forward and see what we can do to elevate and bring this message of Filmworks and television and virtual and digital, and somehow where we have an identity in the U.S. and beyond. So I'm really intrigued about what all you've done. I mean, dude, you and I talk so often that I should have probably pre-recorded the last 5 sessions alone. We would have had an IG Live Thursday. I just let it run and run and run and run and run. But I don't want people to miss out on the fact that you've won awards that to you, to other people. I mean, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you got the 10th Annual International Film Festival in San Francisco, the LA International Short Film Festival in 2006, 12th Annual Chicano Film Festival, and you got the 14th Annual East Los Angeles one. And I mean, dude, you're not a newbie here, but you're young.
Yeah.
And you've learned the business, and what you stood out. I want to say hello to Jose. He's watching as well in Atlanta. And I want people to understand that you have set your sight on not just being great at what you do, but making sure that the projects are just as equally amazing as anything else you've ever seen in cinema. And it's important to talk about. I don't want to go too far. You can always rearrange my conversation, but I want to talk about Mirage, because I know we have a half hour left, but I want to make sure people know about Mirage. And let's go to Guiltless first. And if you want to talk about that and move into Mirage, it's your choice. But I want people to hear the stuff you've done and how you've made it happen. That's important.
Well, that's what I always tell people. I said, honestly, I'm glad that you pointed that out. We're saying, pick what you want. You know what I mean? Like, understand what you're trying to achieve, because if you don't put it out into the universe, no one's gonna, like, how are they gonna know to help you if you don't even know what you want? You can't just hold back and say, let me wait until that opportunity comes for the right one that I want. You have to go and say, no, this is what I want, and live by and die by those convictions, because the world is actually speaking to you if you listen. Like I tell people, like, these topollillo years come in handy, because I'm like a fly on the wall. And these choices and options are going to come to you if you're ready to accept them. So like after I did tea time in Mexico, I came back, I'm like, I need money. You know what I mean? Like, I graduated, I need to phrase some finances. And so I looked for a desk job at Gold Circle Entertainment. And they had the Junkies, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And I was going to apply to be the assistant to the vice president of the company. And I'm sitting there. It's a desk job. You answer phones, you do script, all that stuff. And I said, all right, let me see what I can do. And I sat there in the lobby, and there was this young guy kind of said, hey, man, what are you here for? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to be the I'm trying to be the vice president's assistant. And he's like, I asked him like, hey, so how about you? He's like, oh, I'm a director. Like I have a movie here. It's my very first feature. Like we hit it off. Like we hit it off really nicely. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, if you don't get the job, I could always use an intern. You want to use an intern? Like my very first movie, I'm doing post-production upstairs. You'll be here. It's like, all right, cool. And I was thinking, and I got the job as the assistant to the vice president, and he said, it's yours if you want it. And then I was thinking it over, and I said, this director just told me that I can, hang out with him. I want to be him eventually one day.
So you knew? Yeah, of course you knew. Yeah.
I lived off Cocoa Puffs for a long time. I'm like, yeah, I'll just do this right now. I'll dedicate a few months to him. Why not?
Who owns Cocoa Puffs? Kellogg's? We need to talk about that. Okay. Yeah. We'll have him back on if you want to bring Cocoa Puffs to the screen here. Hey, we're good about that. No problem. Yeah. No problems at all.
So I'm like, this guy's really cool, right? So I'm like, all right, young guy. I'm like, all right. So I show up, and the boss who interviewed me was like, dude, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, I took the job with James upstairs. He's like, oh, yeah, he's a cool dude, man. Like, I think it's smart to do that. And it was a small indie movie called Slither. And the director was James Gunn. And now he's doing Guardians of the Galaxy. He's doing, he's doing a lot of big stuff with Disney and what have you. And because of James, like, he took me aside and he's like, this is what's it about. I work with John, his editor, just seeing the post-production process. And what I found very interesting was that a couple of weeks later, he's like, Lou, I have to fire you. I'm like, dude, what did I do? Like, he's like, you're always here before I am, and I get here early. You always leave until I leave because you want to make sure I'm taken care of. You have my coffee. I have to let you go. I'm like, but if you want to. And I'm like, why? He's like, John and I helped get you a job at Sony. And that's how I got my job with Ann Coates. He's like, for this editor, Ann Coates. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know who she is. She cut Out of Sight, one of my favorite movies. Yeah. It's like, and because of James, I had my opportunity at Sony. So, again, I'm very grateful for James Gunn.
No, that's an unbelievable story because, again, and I'm not trying to say it's a Latino thing. I don't want to go that route right now. But I just know there's so many people. I'll just go ahead and go out there on the limb and say a majority would not just be happy to make the coffee for someone else. And that's the barrier. Those are the small little things that I like to point out. May not be important on the grand scheme, but they are. These are difference makers of doing whatever it takes. You talk about the barista. That's the pride that I take into what I do. Clean up the floors, clean up the toilets, make sure it operates, make sure the customer's happy. If they're not happy, what can you do to fix it? That is a future franchisee owner. Yeah. That is a person you want to invest in. They live for what they do.
They love it. You see the joy.
Yeah. I just wanted to point that out because there's those little key elements that are just life game changers. I call them the sliding doors, like Gwyneth Paltrow movie. They're the difference makers when it comes to, having that opportunity. And they remember what you did. Yeah. And that you worked with them. You're willing to do this. And they saw that you investing into your career as a director and a writer, and it's just it's unbelievable. So you carry on. I just started to interrupt you, but I just had to put that out there.
Love conversation. You and I could talk for 5 hours.
Oh yeah. This is gonna end in 25 minutes or 20 minutes, but I already know, bro. This ain't the end of today. We got other big things to conquer. So I'm all about it, bro. So just go ahead and continue on because I want to get into the guiltless and to the barrage.
Absolutely. So one of the things is this. It's like, again, my ultimate goal is to direct and produce. That's always been my goal. The reason why I direct is because I love telling stories. We're natural born storytellers as Latinos. I don't know what it is. Like I would telling me great stories. He was my HBO. He would tell me about how witch and he did this, and I'm like, I don't know, but it was cool. Yeah. Because that's gonna be a future story I'm gonna write about brujas and what have you. But again,
I know. I can see it already. Yeah, for sure.
Our culture is so rich when it comes to stories, food, our fashion, but yet we don't acknowledge it as much as we want to. Why? We want to live the American dream. And it's funny. What is the American dream? You know, heck, I'm patriotic. I have a flag right here. You know what I mean? It's like,
Well, I was in the Marine Corps, so I have the
yeah,
flag with me in the heart. You know what I mean? But the thing
absolutely.
is, it's like we have the American dream, but we could dissect that to a whole other conversation from Aslan. I mean, I could keep going, you know, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But the reality is that finding that balance to where we don't only live our dream, but we create dreams for other people,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
we bring them along the way. You and I are, you know, we have a generational difference.
Hmm.
You and I, Jose, and then you know, you deal with mentoring kids. You work, you know, with almost and other people, and you see the talent that's coming up, and I see that it's kind of our job to see those people that we know we can develop, because
Well,
they're going to want your job one day.
that's exactly it. Basically, the reason why I'm so keen on mentoring is because I always tell people I feel like my mother saved my life. She gave me life and she saved my life, as well as
Yeah.
my neighbor. You know, era una viejita that she would get me out of trouble because all the kids were on the street doing things, and she gave me my first job. She said, "Luis, I need you to," or Lou, because everyone called me Lou, uh, move these bricks from this side to this side. I'm like, okay, great. And I never caught on. I was like, I'm moving the same bricks from the end of the house to the house. It's like back and forth and doing your yard work for a quarter an hour. Like, it's just, she kept me busy, and it's like
Yep.
academia one, academia. So I remember how influential older generations were. Look, James opening the door for me, my boss opening the door for me, my professor opening the door for me. So
Yep.
why am I at the door behind me
You're
if
right.
I've had wonderful people backing me up? And they provided the one thing that I always strive for: create opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, flash forward, I was a guest director on a Netflix show where I got to observe the current director. So it's like a shadowing program where they kind of
Yeah.
prepare you for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Acting, you have the headliner, you know, guest stars and so forth, and then they have the extras at the background. I'm not going to mention who this person is because he was telling me, he's like, hey, man, like, we're at lunch. I talk to everybody from the executive producer to the cocineros to the cleaners. Like, I love to talk to people. And he's like, yeah, man, my uncle and this. And I'm like, dude, well, who's your uncle? Like, you keep talking about this uncle, and it turned out to be this really famous person. And I'm like, oh, I see the resemblance.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
this nephew of a very famous person is the background and the extra, how can a kid from Pacoima or the hood or the barrio with no ties get the bottom of the bottom jobs in that world? It's basically about a lack of opportunity.
It is.
And
It's opportunity.
not everyone's gonna be as like terco like I am. Like, I'm going in there. I'm like, all right, hey studio, I'm knocking on your door. If you say no, oh well, let's keep going. Someone, hopefully, you know, 1,000 no's, maybe one yes.
Of
You never
course.
know.
Of
No
course.
one, no one understands your vision of your journey as much as you do. Not even family. You know what I
No.
mean? Like,
No. 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 I know. I know.
you
And
know,
the ones
no,
that do, you want to hold on to them. They become your road warriors, you know?
absolutely. And you
Yeah.
reward every single one of them through, like, it again. There's roads for everybody.
Yeah, there is.
So the thing is this: it doesn't have to be in the entertainment industry. Some of my biggest
Right.
allies are not even in the entertainment industry. You know, they're the ones that are saying, okay, how can we do this together?
Right.
And my goal has been to create opportunities.
Right.
Because there was a stretch where I was getting rejected every single day, and that's the bad part about technology now. You get instant no's. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You don't even know if they're real knows or AI knows. They're program knows.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been about building that platform and building that structure.
Okay.
So again, after I left, you know, Sony, I was working for Ant, and then I ended up doing a film called Guiltless, and it
Okay.
was about a man who had the power to remove the emotion of guilt.
Mm.
And basically, I got Danny Trejo, who I met at a party once. And I went up to Danny and I'm like, yo, like, one day you and I are going to work together. He's like, yeah, all right, kid. Like, you know, whatever.
Sure, whatever. Call me. Call my
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Because the thing is, we were at a party, and again, availability is everything. I get
Mm.
involved with the Leaps of the world, the National Hispanic Media Coalitions of the world, and what have you. And I happen to be in that room, and knock on wood, that continues. I just have, I'm always there, you know, and be consistent, you know, just be
It's
there.
about
And
time and place, my friend. And
yeah,
I don't want to go too deep into the fact that it's universal law, but it really is, dude, because you feed it and it
yes,
returns. And a lot of the stuff that you receive is part of what you've invested in. And I tell this to a lot of people. I said, I don't get into no one's religion. That's their business. Do whatever you do. But there is something to be said about just having the faith and the blind trust into being good and
Yeah.
kind and seeing the results coming from different directions. It's not an immediate response. It's not like, okay, you give a homeless man $20 bill and all of a sudden someone drops you 20. No, it could be that call that you were waiting on. It could be something else, but you have to trust what you don't understand. And that's the having that faith and then doing it unconditionally, because your actions are really the seed of your intent. Your intent creates the reaction of your future and your destiny. So with that kind of mentality, bro, that's why Danny Trejo was put in your path or yours into his. It works both ways. Well, and then go into the guiltless thing so you can.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it's amazing, because like Danny, he you know, is very polite and he's a champion for our community, and he's involved, and I love him for that. And that's why I said there's a lot of Latino actors out there. There's a lot. Mm-hmm. But what gravitated towards him was, dude, he helps people. He cares.
Yeah.
And I always observe people. I was a taping of a show at Sony, and somehow ended up in the green room with all the other actors. And I wanted to see how the star was treating, because it was her first like major role that, you know, once people get that golden ticket, sometimes they change and they treat people like garbage if they can't offer them anything.
Oh yeah.
And I remember watching, you know, and I'll mention it. I was watching Justina Machado at One Day at a Time. Mm-hmm. And the way she treated everybody was so respectful. And I said, I want to work with her because she's amazing. Like, she treated everybody with respect, love.
Yes.
And I said, those are the kind of people that I love. Mm-hmm. That, okay, they're crossing over. They're not there yet because we're not getting Disney money. But they're opening like that warm welcome. And that's why those kind of people, you know, like stood out to me. I'm saying, I want to work with them. I will work with them. That's the key thing. But I have to build the infrastructure. Okay. So again, with Danny, I saw the same thing. So when I saw him at a party, I said, hey, my name is Luis Quintero. One day we're going to work together. He's like, starts chuckling. And he starts asking questions. I said, well, we grew up in the same hood and what have you. And I said, one day, expect my call. 3 years later, he gets a call. And I said, hey, remember me? I'm the guy who da-da-da-da. And he's like, yeah, okay. When do you want to film? And that's how we ended up doing Guiltless.
Wow.
And the amazing part was that the house that I went to go film at, which is, you know, here in the Valley, turned out to be his cousin's best friend's house. So when he showed up to set, he's like, hey, I've been here. And then he
so that wasn't planned.
It wasn't planned. He calls his cousin. He's like, yo, I'm at that house. Come on over. His cousin comes over.
Oh, here we go.
You know how us Latinos roll.
Open the grill.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, I didn't tell my casting crew that Danny Trejo was in our movie.
Oh, nice surprise.
I didn't tell the casting crew that, we got Ed Asner.
Oh, Ed Asner. Somebody kind of well-known, you know.
Yeah, because I would tell people, I'm like, if you really want to help,
right,
it's because you want to help me. I have a vision here, not because tengo so-and-so or whatever. You genuinely want to help.
Exactly.
A nobody. That's at the time, you know, I'm like, I'm a nobody. Like, I'm still up and coming. Let's do this thing. And the response is amazing. You know what I mean? Like, you start getting people. But regardless, it's like when they see the Danny Trejos and the Ed Asners and who have you, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. All right.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
People, and you start wanting to work together even more. But it's up to me. And this is why I tell these young people, start delivering. I wanted to showcase that I was a writer. I entered a competition for Universal Pictures. I didn't win, but I placed top 10 in the nation with a screenplay that I had.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. And that opened up a lot of doors. Festival is the way it works. It's like you getting in is a victory, but then if you win the prize, it's something else. So it's like I've gotten into a lot. I've been second place all the time. But I tell people, I'm like, that's not a bad thing, because you're in the room. I've been to events where, you know, Gary Oldman was the main star and everyone's up on Gary Oldman trying to get his attention.
Right.
And Blum is right there. And,
oh, wow.
and Roger Deakins is right there. And no one's talking to them. And I'm like, hey, Jason, I'm so-and-so. And you start getting to know each other. And he was the nicest guy ever. You know what I mean? And Deakins as well. Hey, I loved your Blade Runner. Hopefully you get your Oscar. You know what I mean? It's like you understand the history. You acknowledge the history. And if you acknowledge the history, you can apply it to the present to set up for the future. So one thing is this. I always tell young people as well, have a voice. If your voice right now is like, I want to tell my stoner comedy, then do your stoner comedy. If you
Right.
want, otherwise Cheech and Chong would have never been made. You know?
Exactly.
So it's like, all right, but then they use that as political satire to tell an important message.
They
Have
do.
a voice, and which will lead me on to Mirage. A friend of mine pitched me the idea. He said, "Hey, there's kids dying." I said, "I don't want to do anything about politics. Like, it's in film. You don't mess with politics or religion."
Mm-hmm.
And it went away because at the time, 4 kids have died,
Oh yeah.
and now we're up to what, 7 that we know of.
And then, not to mention all the sexual assaults that have come out.
Assaults, the numbers,
Yeah,
and everything.
abuse, child abuse. It's horrendous.
And I
Shame.
said, well, how do you tell a story without sounding, like antagonistic? Because unfortunately, the sad truth is, if you're a Latino or a minority, you have to work twice as hard to be judged twice as fast.
Exactly.
There's not a problem with that yet, because that's how it is. We have to change it ourselves, the way we're acting. Mm-hmm. What's happening right now with the riots, and we're making a statement. And it's honestly, it's just people are so frustrated, and it's cyclical. We saw it 8 years ago, Trayvon Martin, and why are we seeing this now? So I stand with these, all our brothers and sisters, because it's not a race thing, it's a people thing, and we forget to take care of each other.
And the reason it's really, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the reason why it's so huge now as opposed to once before, because Dallas has a story. Forgot his last name, but there was a young teenage kid, Santiago. It's in the paper. You can Google it. He was killed by police unnecessarily. So it was a big story, but it went straight to print, and there was no digital. There's no HTML. There's no way the world could have found out about it. But if it had been today, I may have said his name wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I do know the story to be true. And it went straight to the Dallas Times Herald, Dallas Morning News. And then it kind of like didn't go viral because we weren't in the internet stage. But, I spoke a little bit last night on my Facebook, just a little bit to the public, just to let them know that, just to understand that we have to keep our right to protest. It's imperative that we don't lose our rights afforded to us by the Constitution. I've served military. Other people have died in wars, fought wars. Currently, there's wars going on right now that aren't even in the news that are happening to protect our interests here in the U.S., abroad and domestically. So this stuff never ends. So we got to keep our freedom of speech, our right to protest and assemble and everything. But we have to be safe. Absolutely. I mean, we have to be safe. And I'll let you finish with your Mirage, because we do have 8 minutes, but I want you to go ahead and just take it from here until we finish.
Well, thank you. And again, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for
my pleasure. Thank you.
So one thing I always tell people, I said, look, if we don't have a voice, no one's going to listen. You have to distinguish that voice and what that is. And there's a lot of other people who are qualified to do other things, but if you create a platform and an avenue, maybe you can spark that conversation. Mm-hmm. And that's why I proceeded with it, and I moved forward, because people are waiting for that perfect moment to tell the perfect story. And I said, look, there's no perfect story. You have to go out there. My only rule is you have to educate people and not vilify anybody. Take an objective point of view. And this is why you see the story based off of a little girl's point of view. Mm-hmm. Because there's nothing more pure and innocent than a child's eyes. And these children that are being incarcerated, they're losing their innocence, and they're losing that privilege that we're supposed to have. Everybody is entitled to have it. Heck, I'm still a 5-year-old. I play make-believe for a living. And the one thing that I tell people, I said, I was very fortunate. I'm trying to maintain that. Now, if I can create those opportunities so, people can say, hey, I have this idea. Okay, tell me about it. Let's find that structured environment. Because the studios, like, no one's out to get us. It's not a race thing, not a gender thing. It's a classism thing. Mm-hmm. And the class is, it's the haves and have-nots. And where I grew up, we're to focus on putting food on our table.
Yeah.
Focus on a roof over our head, that we can't afford that luxury of playing make-believe.
Right.
Regard it, and we take it for granted. But that is the biggest mistake, because we can do so much. The power of the media, especially now where we actually have a platform like IG Live or Zooms or, Facebook, what have you. We have a platform, but we get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
So we get an oversaturated market with cat videos and God only knows. you know?
Yeah, you're
So,
right. You're right.
so what I intend to do is create that voice. And I've always been very quiet about what I do, and then
Hmm.
let my work speak for itself. And that's why I tell people, let the work speak for itself first,
Hmm.
get those accolades. And then your resume all of a sudden gets boosted up and you're like, yeah, no one can take that away from you.
Right.
That's your the DR in front of your name where it's saying,
It
I
is.
did this, I did this, I did this. Don't tell me what you want to do, want to. Everybody wants to do something.
Right.
And it doesn't require a lot of money. Heck, one of my, greatest friends, like Carlos, he did El Mariachi, and he did Robert Rodriguez. And I always talk to him like, saying he's the king of independent cinema. He said, shoot it on toilet paper. I don't care. Like, just doesn't matter. Don't buy into like, oh, I need to have a red camera, black magic camera, this, that. We shot in mariachi for $7,000 in Mexico, but he found all the resources,
Yeah.
and he's an amazing person, and he's very humble. So I'll
Hmm.
brag for him because he likes to be behind the spotlight. And I'm like, dude, you need to be out there because his mariachi just got accepted into Smithsonian. You know,
Wow. See.
it's like things like that. I'm like, man, come on. But if you start bragging about yourself, you people look down upon you.
Well,
And
you gotta allow the Georgina Avileses of the world and the Rikki Rincons of the world to
yeah,
publicize, market, and get the word out, because it's important that our kids in high school right now, in middle school, in elementary school, know that it's in the Smithsonian. It's important and that's why I'm really big on creative arts and people in that field to assemble the teams that can actually market for them, because your mindset is in a whole different plane than the average person. You're moving so fast forward with Foreshadowing Entertainment, by the way, that's your company. And before you got about 2.5 minutes.
all right.
Just give me, what it took to make Mirage.
Love. Like, honestly, the voice of hearing like these kids have no choices. It's sad when you see a kid, literally the video was leaked where you see him revolcándose como un perrito in the corner.
Right.
No child should suffer. And again, it's not about blaming Republicans or Democrats. I'm anti children suffering.
Exactly.
That's that's the only reason why I did it. And I reached out to a lot of people and said, I need your help because I
Yeah.
can't do this myself. And if you notice, we didn't do the festival run. We put it out there on YouTube, so you could go to my website. Go to the website and I it's lrquintero.com, and you see all of my work there. It's free to the public.
Yeah.
We want to. You saw we were televised by Telemundo, Estrella TV.
No, I mean, you've been all over the place. I
Okay,
mean, Latin Heat covered
Latin,
you, Shadow and Act. I mean, KCGT, ET, Estrella TV, KPFK, Radio, NBC, Telemundo. I mean, and that's just what you gathered. And I can imagine if you do a deeper search, you're going to find a lot more links from media around the country and around the world. I have a question here. Cynthia Santiago asked me, how did you find? Hey, everybody. I had to get back on. I'm going to have the director Luis Quintero to get back on just for a few minutes. And what I wanted to do is say thank you for, first and foremost, thank you for this opportunity for this interview. And it's a big deal because, to me, I took a big break from broadcast, man. I was doing radio, not TV, but I was doing radio for 14, 15 years. Morning show, the promotion guy, the guy with the radio and the big antenna on top of the van, doing remotes at concerts until the night was over. Working 15, 16 hours. You just don't stop when you love it. But when I got back and I thought about going back on IG Live, I saw this platform. I actually prefer this more than Facebook. I'm not going to say why, but I just figured out that Facebook allows for the dual frame too as well, like this. They just added it on there. And so I'm thinking about kind of doing this, doing Facebook Live and this and Facebook Live, because they allow to bring on the guest on there, like the
mm,
rooms, but actually live.
mm, mm.
So yeah. So anyway, I wanted to say thank you. And if there's anything else you wanted to talk about right now, feel free. I want to say hello to Dapper Magazine. You see, now we're getting new people that I didn't get on the first one. I want to say hello to Natalie Tassel. Natalie, I want to say hello to you, a Dapper Magazine, and she's on right now. It's like Esquire Magazine here in the DFW Metroplex. So this is the film director. Say hello to Natalie. She's saying hello to you. This is a film director, Natalie. I mean, I know if you put him in the suit, maybe the front cover of your future magazine, and we can talk about it. But Luis, I wanted you to say your final words, and I'll go on and do a wrap up of the show, because a lot of people here didn't even hear the first hour. So.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you so much for having these platforms for artists and just hearing that Latino voice, because I feel that the one thing that we need to create is those platforms for us Latinos, and it's not just only Latinos, but just people of all races and all diverse colors and everything,
Right.
because without each other, we don't have anything, we
You're
need each other.
right. You're right. And yeah, you're right.
But thank you. I want to throw a shout out to the entire team, Javier, Mr. Ricky, Miss G, El Alcalde, the doctor, so I'm not using the real names because they know who they are.
Yeah, and we got to say hello to home, our friend. You say J already? J and G.
J and G. Yep.
I want to say hello to all the team and everybody else out there, because the reality is that everybody's doing an amazing job in their respective area, and then all the other work that they're involved in outside of this, and just given enough time to apply towards the arts. I'm a big supporter of the arts on all levels, creative arts and everything else. As a youth, I was in drama 101 and theater and field trips to the Dallas Theater. You just don't forget the impact that it had, the wood shop days and all those little general classes that I don't know if they still exist anymore, but those extracurricular things that were away from just books were such a big deal in how to build and how to construct and use another side of the brain. So, I know have you ever done music videos?
No, I did one, and it's on my webpage as well. It was like a spoof. My friend got the artist who helped, the musicians for the theme of Friends to do one of his music videos, which
Ah,
I was the director on that. Yeah.
okay. Well, the next guest I have for next Thursday, she's out of New York. I met her for the first time when I was living in Miami. I was invited backstage to the Super Freestyle. I'm a huge proponent for freestyle music. Aaron Dallas, back in the early 80s, we broke it, myself and a few partners. TKA and Latin Rascal, Sweet Sensation, Cover Girls, and Stevie B and all that stuff. So I'm a big person on that. And I got a lot of memories of LA and Riverside when it comes to the freestyle music and the scene down there. And so I have invited one of the new singers, and I say new because I think she's been with them for about the last 6-7 years. Her name is Bianca, and she's one of the singers for Seduction. From the songs Heartbeat, You're My One and Only True Love. Excuse the background noise. I feel like I'm on a movie set with the ambulance driving by. It's real time. I mean, it is what it is. And so we have Bianca. She's also, aside from being in the group Seduction, she's also launched a solo career. She has an R&B single out called Tell Me. It's on Spotify, YouTube. It's a new single. It's beautiful. And people are going to love Bianca. I gravitated towards her backstage, her energy. And the group itself, they're wonderful altogether. The lead singer's the original girl, but Bianca, I started connecting with her and seeing her become really huge on TikTok. And I got to see how like you said, we watch people.
Yeah.
We watch people, and there's certain people that you just connect with, you click. So next week, I'm going to have Bianca from the group Seduction. She'll be on at 12. So we're going to talk about the music industry, what her plans are to do music videos. Is she looking for anybody, stuff like that, and just keeping that connection. She's a wonderful soul, and I can't wait to get to know her myself. So that's where we are. I want to say hello to Christy Salazar. She just joined on. I hope she saw a little bit of the first hour. We just came on, Christy, as a little bonus because we got cut off. We broke the time clock. We broke it. But this is Luis Ramón Quintero, film director and writer. And so look him up at lrquintero.com, and you're going to see everything that's about. How do they follow you on Instagram and Twitter?
On Instagram, it's Flan Slayer, and on Twitter, it's LR Quintero.
And flan, like flan?
Like flan, like you eat the flan. I always tell people, it's like, I love flan.
Yeah, man, I love it too.
I don't always slay it. It sometimes slays me most of the time, but I love it. And it's our culture. It's like who we are. Have fun with this. Don't be too serious. It's like, again,
I know. Yeah, exactly. So thank you again. It's
been
a pleasure of mine to have you on. I know we're going to connect in the future. So have a great day out there. I know in LA, you're looking at about probably 10 after 11, something like that. 11. And so be safe out there, and appreciate your work, brother.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
All right,
Much love.
Okay, bye.